Hey guys, it's Pineapple, and I know it's been a long time since you've heard those words, but honestly I was feeling really burned out, and honestly I was dealing with some stuff in the real world that kept me from uploading. I've chosen now to try and come back on a normal upload schedule, so please bear with me, and I hope you're happy to see me because I'm happy to see you. With that said, in this video we're going to be going over what I think the pace of this season is going to be like, and how far I think we're going to go in Demon Slayer Season 2. What will this season cover content-wise beyond the Mugen Train arc? Let's discuss it right. We already know a little bit about the season as far as what we're going to be seeing for the first 7 episodes. In episode 1, we're going to be getting a Rengoku original episode that you can watch on Crunchyroll right now. I haven't seen it at the time of recording, but if I watch it and find it interesting enough to discuss with you, you might see a video on it in the next few days, trying to piece together anything interesting that it gave us regarding Rengoku. If you'd like, there are also a number of Demon Slayer side stories that involve Rengoku that I haven't told on this channel yet, and stories for other characters that we haven't discussed, so make sure to let me know that that's something that you want below. Now, after the anime original episode for episode 1, we know that episodes 2 through 7 cover the Mugen Train arc that you might have already seen in the movie, but I suppose this is for people who haven't seen the movie, so let's go over how I think they're going to pace those 6 episodes. So for episode 2, I could see this episode starting with a little original material actually, to mesh the ending of last season really well into the ending of last episode. But regardless, early on in the episode, we'll probably start with the characters meeting Rengoku on the train after his mission in the last episode, a quick battle, and then the group is going to go to sleep. I think the episode is going to end on Tanjiro either entering a sleep dimension or at the end of chapter 55 with Tanjiro enjoying his time with his family, meaning I think this episode will cover 2 chapters. In episode 3, I think the episode will start with an explanation of Enmu's dream ability, and we'll see the humans under his control trying to destroy a few spiritual cores to render our swordsmen useless. This episode should mainly revolve around Tanjiro struggling to cope with his dream and the dangers of trying to escape that dream. If they want to be especially mean, I think that they would end the episode on Tanjiro realizing what he needs to do to escape, which would be one hell of a cliffhanger for the next episode. That right there is another 2-chapter episode. With episode 4, I think this is the episode where we'll end up seeing Inosuke and Zenitsu's dream, since it kind of helps to push it forward to this episode to help last episode's pace and flow a bit. But continuing on, after some help from Nezuko, I expect Tanjiro to head to the top of the train to try and find Enmu face to face. After their battle, I think I could see the episode ending midway through chapter 60 with Inosuke saying that he'll save everyone on board and starting his assault on the masses of demon flesh in the train. But it could also very well end on Rengoku waking up and telling Tanjiro which parts of the train that he's protecting. That leaves episode 4 at covering roughly 2.5 chapters. If episode 4 doesn't make it all the way to Rengoku waking up, then I see episode 5 starting with the scene between Nezuko and Zenitsu where he helps her out in his sleep mode. And from there we'll continue on to Rengoku waking up as Tanjiro and Inosuke begin to make their way to the front of the train. I think this episode will more or less wrap up the fight against Enmu, leaving Tanjiro and the others completely exhausted, while an unexpected enemy drops onto the battlefield in the last moments of the episode. And I think the perfect time to end the episode would be in the middle of his attack against Tanjiro during chapter 62, meaning I think episode 5 is going to also cover roughly 2.5 chapters. With episode 6, I expect us to see the entirety of Rengoku's fight against Akaza, including the aftermath and Rengoku's conversation with Tanjiro, as well as Inosuke's speech. I think this episode will end with them being retrieved by the Kakashi Brigade, meaning that I think this episode is going to cover 3.5 chapters. In episode 7, I expect this episode to begin with the news of the events of the mission being spread amongst the other Hashira and the Demon Slayer Corps at large, finding out just what happened on that train and beside it. We'll also see Akaza's report to Muzan, giving us a first look at the main bad for the first time this season. From there, we'll see Tanjiro venturing to the Rengoku family home and dealing with honestly a lot, and I expect this episode to wrap up with Tanjiro heading back to the Butterfly Estate where everyone is healing after learning what he could from Rengoku's father and brother. And with that, we wrap up the events of the Demon Train arc, with I think this episode covering about 3 chapters. In episode 8, I expect us to begin the Red Light District arc in true fashion, with Tanjiro nearing the Butterfly Estate and seeing Aoi getting grabbed by a man who only does things flamboyantly. As Tanjiro steps in, we'll be properly introduced to to Uzui Tengen, the Sound Hashira of the Demon Slayer Corps. We only saw him briefly last season, but of course he'll be getting a lot of focus this time around because a lot of this arc does center around his character. Once we establish that the main trio was coming along of Tengen on his mission, they spend some time getting to know him and learning about the mission in the district that they're going to, and then I think the episode is going to end on Uzui nearly noticing the presence of the upper moon and seeing a quick flash of our three boys in their respective locations, with some of them in their makeup. Meaning I think episode 8 will roughly cover about 2.5 chapters as well. For episode 9, I think this episode will start with us seeing Tanjiro, Zenitsu, and Inosuke in their respective homes after being sold on the market. And here is where we'll see Tanjiro trying to get a bit of information on the various disappearing girls. Now, after Uzui's wife Makio faces some trouble from the demon that they're searching for, which ultimately leaves Inosuke on a chase, we see Zenitsu get into some real danger when he gets involved in a dispute and unluckily comes across a massive threat. I think this episode is going to end with Tanjiro noticing an odd smell in the air at the end of chapter 74, meaning I think this episode will cover about 2 chapters. In episode 10, I think we'll start with our team gathering together to share info about what they've learned so far, while also setting rules for the mission moving forward. We'll see Tanjiro putting on his Demon Slayer uniform once again to begin his hunt for the demon, and we'll also meet the coolest mice in just all of anime, honestly. Eventually, Tanjiro will find the demon and their fight will begin. And I think this episode will end just as their fight truly begins and the demon acknowledges Tanjiro somewhat, meaning I also think chapter 10 covers 2 chapters. In episode 11, I think we'll start with Uzui finding one of his wives, but as he heads off to find the area of the fight, we'll cut back to Tanjiro as he tries to use the Hinokami dance techniques to fend off the upper moon as she tries to figure out what he's capable of. I think the episode will go on for a while until we see Inosuke diving into a pit hidden by the demon and finding her hidden storage. Now, as Inosuke has to take on her familiar, a snake-like sash demon, I think this episode will end around the point where the sash gets the orders to absolutely take Inosuke alive no matter what it takes, meaning I think episode 11 also covers 2 chapters. For episode 12, assuming we've gotten things right up until this point, this episode could begin with Inosuke's fight against the sash demon, as well as Zenitsu waking up as Uzui's wives join in to give Inosuke a little bit of help. Cutting back to Tanjiro, we see that the upper moon has really pissed Tanjiro off, and we get to what amounts to Tanjiro's first true rage-filled moment in combat since he's awakened his new abilities. And with that, I think this episode will end with the upper moon seeing a flash of a strange figure in the place of Tanjiro, a grown man with a very similar mark on his forehead, meaning I see episode 12 covering roughly 2.5 chapters. With episode 13, I think we'll pick up on Tanjiro's rage moment during his fight with the upper moon. She really turns her speed and power up, finally taking things serious and trying to take him out, but something is odd about Tanjiro, and trust me, it's absolutely going to be a sight to see, as this is one of the moments that I'm most looking forward to seeing adapted in the anime for this arc. As the episode continues, Nezuko will get involved in the battle and show off an entirely new ability that we haven't seen before, and I think the episode will end on her fight with the upper moon and Tanjiro being woken up by the spirit of his brother telling him to rush to her side, meaning that I see episode 13 covering 2.5 chapters. In episode 14, I see this episode beginning with Nezuko's continued assault on the upper moon demon, but eventually the fight will end and Tanjiro is going to need to step in and get her under control while Uzui prepares to take the demon out for good. That's when, surprise surprise, they realize that she's not the only problem that they actually have to contend with, and I think that this episode is going to end on Gyutaro's introduction, including the section from chapter 63 where he introduces himself by name, meaning I think episode 14 is going to cover 3.5 chapters. Now we're on episode 15. Now, in my opinion, if we're right about the order of events so far, in this episode we'll see the main trio reuniting, with Inosuke and Zenitsu finding Tanjiro in the center of the red light district with Nezuko in his arms. Elsewhere, Uzui begins his fight with the second upper moon demon that has made himself known. From there, we'll get some of Uzui's backstory, and then the fight will continue as he takes on both demons at once. I think the episode will end on Tanjiro joining Uzui and the pair of demons being split up between the 2 teams of Uzui with Tanjiro and Zenitsu with Inosuke, bringing episode 15 to covering about 2.5 chapters in my estimation. With episode 16, the battle intensifies as Tanjiro barely hangs in there, trying to keep up with the ridiculous speed of the upper demon moon. Even with Uzui's help, the two have extreme difficulty dealing with the demon's blood art, while on the roof, Zenitsu and Inosuke dodge attacks flying up from the fight below as they try and take down the original Upper Moon that they were all there to defeat. I think the episode is going to end on Uzui trying to cut off Gyutaro's head and announcing that he's in Tanjiro's debt. But as Uzui tries to cut off the demon's head with Tanjiro's help, the demon is very tricky and still manages to break loose and move away, while the others need to do their job and slice Daki's head off. And that means episode 16 covers about 3 chapters. With episode 17, I think that Inosuke is going to get impressed by how calm and Zenitsu is, since he's never really seen dreaming Zenitsu before, but as impressed as he is, it still isn't enough to help them close the distance on Daki the Upper Moon Sash Demon. So Tanjiro is going to lend his sword to their fight, and I actually think this episode is going to feel like it covers a lot of content because there is a lot of chaotic fighting that happens at the very end of this conflict, so I think this is going to end on chapter 94's cliffhanger with Gyutaro seemingly exploding to take everyone out, meaning that I also think episode 17 is going to cover 3 chapters. With episode 18, I think it might begin with our team waking up from the explosion of demon energy, and we'll take some time to look at who survived and who didn't, before an argument picks up between the severed head of the 2 upper demon moons. I think we'll see the entirety of their backstory, and eventually the episode will end on the snake pillar being surprised that Tanjiro survived this whole ordeal, considering Tengen's injuries are so bad. But they may include a small scene involving Ubuyashiki, the head of the Demon Slayer Corps, and that should lead into Akaza being summoned by Muzan for a certain meeting. Meaning I also see episode 18 covering 3 chapters, ending on chapter 97. So from here on, I'll be honest, I'm not too sure about how they're going to handle the pacing. I've tried a few times to come up with how I think they're going to fit this arc into the rest of the season, and I know they will, but I'm personally having trouble figuring out where exactly and how exactly they'll fit it, and really no matter how I do it, I'm left with a few extra chapters, but that's probably again because we've paced things a little too slowly in the first section of this video. So if anything, let that excite you for the possibility that maybe the first 18 episodes of this season are going to have a faster pace than what I thought they were going to have in this video. So even though it's gotten pretty difficult with the rest of the episodes that are left to try and fit in the Swordsmith Village arc, I want to try and piece it together. So here's what I got. With episode 19, I expect us to see the meeting that Akaza was led to. In this meeting, we see the rest of the Upper Demon Moons unite to hear what Muzan has to say. Muzan demands that they find a certain thing that has taken over 500 years to find. There is tension at this meeting, but it serves to cover the next arc that we'll be covering in this season. We'll see Kyoko and Hatengu, 2 different Upper Moons, sent on their mission by Muzan, and after seeing a bit of an argument between demons, that'll lead us to a really interesting dream that Tanjiro's having, and him waking up from his injuries quite confused. From there, we'll spend some much needed time recovering from his injuries and the trauma from the last arc, and everyone will slowly start to wake up and start their training and physical therapy. I think near the end of the episode, Tanjiro is going to head towards his swordsmith to get his blade repaired, and on the way we'll get a very bare sight of the love pillar at a hot spring. With episode 20, as Tanjiro spends some time in the village, he reunites with Genya and then meets Kanroji and the Mist Pillar, Tokito. Tanjiro and Tokito get into a bit of an argument over one of the swordsmiths, and after waking up from being knocked out, Tanjiro catches up with Tokito at a training field where he seems to be fighting against a very mysterious figure that we've seen before. But something is off. Tanjiro learns of a training dummy that the Demon Slayers train against based on a Demon Slayer of the past with ridiculous ability. The dummy is given 6 arms to try and simulate the ability of the original user, which just shows you how skilled they must have been because the dummy needs that many arms to do what a 2-armed man did so long ago on his own. Of course, by the end of the episode, I think Tanjiro is going to be told that he needs to defeat the dummy, making this another 3-chapter episode. In episode 21, I think after some difficulty in training, Tanjiro will find a secret deep within the dummy after finally being able to land a hit on it. From there, we'll have Haganezuka offering to polish a rusty blade for Tanjiro with a technique passed down through the generations. And we'll also see the arrival of the demons in the village late at night. As Tanjiro and Tokito begin to bond a little bit actually and have a nice conversation, one of the demons sent by Muzan creeps into their room after completely hiding its presence. Eventually, the demon splits and Tanjiro and Nezuko have trouble dealing with both halves, but I think the episode will end with Genya stepping in with his good old classic Glock breath techniques to save the day, making this another 3-chapter episode. In episode 22, I see Genya managing to knock a few heads off, but that only makes matters worse for everyone involved, as there are now 4 demons to deal with. As Tanjiro deals with a harpy-like demon, Tokito fights a giant fish demon in the forest. I think most of the episode is going to continue with Genya, Tanjiro, and Nezuko each struggling against their opponent, with the mystery of Genya's ability becoming more and more obvious. This, once again, surprise, is another 3-chapter episode in my opinion. For episode 23, I see this episode beginning of Tanjiro finding Nezuko in danger and then being knocked out together with her for a moment, while Tokito stumbles upon Gyoko, the upper demon moon that he has to face. Their battle begins after Gyoko really pisses Tokito off, and the Mist Pillar is very impressive. I see this episode ending of Kanroji the Love Pillar on the way to the battle, with that occurring at the end of chapter 111, meaning I think this episode's only going to cover 2 chapters. In episode 24, I see Kanroji getting to the village and helping out, while it gets assaulted by a bunch of summoned fish demons. Elsewhere, Nezuko's going to light Tanjiro's blade on fire, and from there, Tanjiro goes nuts on these guys in another sure to go viral fight. The battle is nearly over, but the hunt for the Upper Moon's true body lasts quite a while. I see this episode covering Genya's flashback and ending on Tanjiro trying to finally remove the demon's true head. However, a 6th demon appears after all of the different demons fuse together, and Tanjiro is extremely worried about his ability to take it down. So here we're going to see Hatengu's final clone threatening to take Tanjiro down for being the true evil between the two of them. Now, I actually think this episode is going to cover a lot of content, and you'll see that stick for the rest of the episodes in this season, covering about 4 to 5 chapters each, but keep in mind that these chapters are very high in combat, which tends to make things a little faster. For most of episode 25, I think we're going to see Tokito fighting against Hyako, while Haganazuka mindlessly works on Tanjiro's new blade, even while he's under attack. We'll see some of Tokito's backstory, and I also honestly think this episode will include Tokito's awakening of his mark and continue until the end of his fight at the end of chapter 121, bringing it, like I said, to another 5-chapter episode. And then for episode 26, which I believe is the final episode of the season, I see Kanroji stepping in to keep Tanjiro safe from Hatengu's final form for as long as she can, while giving the demon a run for his money. I see the battle continuing and the insanity of the moment almost overwhelming Tanjiro and the group, with Nezuko making a drastic decision, forcing Tanjiro to make a drastic sacrifice. With this being the finale, I expect them to leave us off on a very big moment. So I either see the season leaving us off right as the morning hits and Tanjiro gets told good morning by a certain someone, or I see the season ending off on Tokito possibly offering to explain to everyone else how to get marks of their own. And that means I expect the season to roughly end around chapter 124 to chapter 126. Now, I know the pace is a little fast at the end there, but again, keep in mind that I do believe that my list might be a little slow in certain sections and faster in other sections, and that's just the nature of trying to figure out just how they're going to lay everything out. I hope this serves as a fun potential guide, because every season I like looking back at these videos and seeing where things start to go wrong, or celebrating if I was mostly right. So play along if you'd like, there's no harm done. And if you guys want me to discuss this week's anime original episode featuring Rengoku, or more content in general, just let me know in the comment section below. Thank you for all your patience with me. I really needed a break, honestly, but let's get to it. I'm honestly happy to be back, and I'm feeling really refreshed, so I'm really looking forward to covering the season of Yaiba with you all, and I hope to see you back here later. This is Pineapple. Love you guys. I'll see you again. Peace.